Some say there's a hidden book, the kind whispered about by those who build empires quietly. A small black ledger of laws that have passed from merchant to monarch, banker to billionaire. 4 principles that decide who commands fortune and who kneels before it. They aren't secrets because they're hidden. They're secrets because most men refuse to see them. I used to believe money was chaos. Luck, timing, talent. I thought if I worked hard enough, something would break through. It never did. Until I discovered the same truth Machiavelli taught princes centuries ago. Wealth, like power, obeys structure. Once I understood that, my entire life changed. Within a few years, I went from broke to $1 million by 30, and then far beyond. Not by grinding harder, but by aligning myself with the 4 timeless rules of wealth. And those rules are what I'm about to give you. Each one builds upon the last, leading you from dependence to dominance. The first rule, the one everything else rests upon, is this. You must possess one money-making skill. Not luck, not inheritance. A skill so sharp it cuts through every economic season. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors the bold, but boldness without mastery is suicide." There are 4 primary blades in the arsenal of wealth. The first is selling, the art of persuasion, of moving men and markets with words. The second is making, creating tangible or digital products that the world consumes. The third is designing, having the taste and intuition to shape beauty, functionality, and experience. And the fourth is hunting, the discipline to spot mispriced opportunities before anyone else sees them. Choose one. That's your battlefield. Every man who tries to master all 4 dies in confusion. Once you choose, go where that craft is worshipped. Find the highest performer. Sit near them. If they make 100 calls, make 200. If they write 50 proposals, write 100. You will not be as good at first, but volume is the road to refinement. Machiavelli said, "He who imitates another can never surpass him unless he excels in what he imitates." Observe, imitate, then exceed. During the day, execute. At night, study. If selling is your chosen weapon, immerse yourself in every book, conversation, and recording that teaches the rhythm of persuasion. Your 9 to 5 becomes your training ground. Your 5 to 9 becomes your war room. Take Mr. Beast, the maker who mastered his craft. As a teenager, he trained idea generation like a mercenary trained swordsmanship. Every day, he opened a dictionary, picked a random word, and forced himself to create 20 video concepts around it. Most were terrible. But each repetition made him sharper. It took him over 100 failed videos before he reached 10,000 subscribers. Today, each upload reaches hundreds of millions. That's not talent. It's trained obsession. Or Warren Buffett, the hunter. He spent years reading the Moody's manual, page by page, hunting for a single mispriced gem. 4,000 pages of numbers for one decision. And from thousands of attempts, he distilled 12 decisions that built his empire. 12 right calls over a lifetime. That's all. If you master one of these skills, wealth becomes inevitable. Master 2, and you become untouchable. Steve Jobs wielded design and persuasion. He didn't just sell products, he sold belief. Elon Musk fused building and selling. He could create the impossible, then convince the world to fund it. You don't need to be a world champion at either skill. Be top 20% at 2 rare ones, and the world can't compete with you. A coder who understands marketing, a designer who understands business, these are modern royalty. This is your foundation, your virtue as Machiavelli called it. The cultivated excellence that bends fortune to your will. But skill without ownership is just servitude. A prince who fights for another's throne is still a soldier. So once your weapon is forged, the next step is claiming your territory. Most men never escape servitude because they confuse motion with power. They learn a skill, they get hired, they earn promotions, and they believe this means progress. But Machiavelli warned that men are more inclined to forget the loss of their fathers than the loss of their inheritance. The moment you trade time for a paycheck, you sell your freedom for comfort, and comfort is the slowest form of captivity. A salary feels safe because it dulls the fear of hunger, but like the silk chains of a golden cage, it keeps you docile. Renting your time is the modern vassal's trap. Even the most highly paid lawyers or consultants eventually hit a ceiling. 24 hours, no more. The rich do not sell time. They own systems, assets, or equity that continue to earn while they sleep. In Florence, the Medici family learned this truth early. They financed ventures instead of laboring in them. They took a percentage of the merchant's success, and that single insight turned them from bankers into kings. So how do you seize equity without already being rich? Through the 3 C's: code, content, and capital. Code is the new printing press of wealth. A friend of mine once worked as a designer for an agency, earning $200,000 a year, a princely wage, but still chained to hours. One day, he realized he was decorating other men's castles. So, he quit. He turned his designs into Shopify themes, digital architecture he could sell infinitely. He built once, sold thousands of times. Now he earns millions in passive profit, living between Bali and Japan, free of deadlines or bosses. That's equity, that's ownership. Content is persuasion multiplied by infinity. A man with a voice can move markets, not by shouting louder, but by engineering ideas that compound long after he stops speaking. Look at Alex Hormozy. Just a few weeks ago, he shattered a Guinness World Record, the fastest-selling book in history, and he did it in only 2 hours. Within 24 hours, over 2.7 million copies of 100 Nada money models were sold. At $30 a book, that's roughly $82 million in a single day. No corporate campaign, no celebrity push, just a man, a camera, and a message powerful enough to bend the internet. That's what happens when words become equity. Hormozy didn't trade his hours for consulting fees. He traded his intellect for ownership. Each book, each video, each idea was a brick in the fortress he built long before launch day. So when the moment arrived, the world simply delivered its tribute. The princes of Florence once commissioned frescoes to immortalize their power. Today's rulers commission attention. In the modern court of influence, whoever commands attention commands capital. When you own the narrative, you never need to chase customers. They line up at your gates. That is the Machiavellian nature of content. Invisible leverage that multiplies itself through time. One message, executed with precision, can feed a dynasty. Then there's capital. Money as a weapon, not a reward. My cousin hated his 6-figure job. He wanted independence, not applause. So, he apprenticed under a veteran real estate investor, studied deal structures, shadowed every negotiation, and doubled his mentor's work output. 2 years later, he began his own ventures. In his first year, he acquired $40 million worth of multi-family properties, not with his own savings, but with investor funds. He found undervalued properties, negotiated margins of safety, and earned equity for his insight. That's the art of hunting. Identifying mispriced opportunity and turning intellect into ownership. Every path is different. Code for builders, content for communicators, capital for strategists. But the outcome is the same. Leverage that decouples your income from your hours. Remember this. The rich trade risk for time, the poor trade time for illusion. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good and use it according to necessity. That doesn't mean deceit. It means refusing the polite mediocrity of endless employment. You must dare to build what others are too afraid to lose. But even when you break free and build your own machine, a deeper trial begins. Because all empires, all fortunes, grow not at the pace of ambition, but at the pace of time. The next rule separates the impatient from the inevitable. Machiavelli once compared fortune to nature itself, fickle, unpredictable, yet submissive to those who prepare for her storms. Fortune, he wrote, is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. But that force isn't recklessness. It's disciplined persistence. Most men plant seeds and then rip them out of the soil, furious that the tree hasn't yet grown. They forget that time itself is the richest currency. You can rush your labor, but you cannot rush the harvest. If you've mastered a money-making skill and turned it into ownership, whether through code, content, or capital, your ascent is now mathematically inevitable. But inevitable is not the same as immediate. This is where most people fail. They confuse urgency with impatience. The rich act urgently, but wait patiently. The poor wait idly and act frantically. I learned this the hard way. After building my first business, I wanted results instantly. Every week that profits didn't double, I rewired the system. I changed the strategy. I uprooted the crop before it had time to grow. Then I realized what Machiavelli meant when he said, "A prince who builds on time builds on the strongest foundation." Time is the only ally that multiplies what you've already done. If you stop disturbing the soil. The modern philosopher Naval Ravikant put it this way: be impatient with action and patient with results. That's not just productivity advice. It's psychological warfare against your own restlessness. It means moving every day with intensity while surrendering your obsession with speed. When you operate like that, you become untouchable. Because your timeline extends further than your competitors' patience, you can outlast them without effort. Think of how cathedrals were built in Florence. The architect who laid the first stone knew he would never see the dome completed in his lifetime. Yet he built anyway, because real legacy compounds beyond the builder. So it is with wealth. The moment you master patience, time stops being your enemy. It becomes your silent partner. The good news is that you only need to get rich once, truly rich, and you can coast forever if you preserve discipline. Once the machine works, you simply let it compound. The impatient chase luck, the patient build inevitability. I won't lie to you, it's hard to wait. You'll be tempted to compare yourself to others, to question whether your strategy is working, to touch the seed too early. Don't. The tree doesn't grow faster because you stare at it. If you've followed the first two rules, if you've built skill and turned it into ownership, then your only task now is consistency. Before we move forward, remember this. The game of wealth is not a sprint of talent. It's a marathon of discipline. The impatient want intensity. The wealthy want longevity. Now, even though success requires time, there's one Machiavellian secret that allows you to accelerate it. Not by magic, but by environment. Because proximity to greatness infects you with its rhythm. And if patience is the virtue that compounds results, proximity is the fire that speeds it up. Even though time is your greatest ally, you can make her move faster by changing where you stand. Machiavelli advised young princes to live among their subjects, to see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears. In wealth, the same law applies. Proximity determines speed. When you surround yourself with those who build, you start to absorb their pace, their ambition, their language of power. Fortune may be blind, but she tends to dwell where the bold have gathered. So, move. Literally, move. If your ambition lies in technology, go where innovation breathes. San Francisco, Dubai, Singapore. If your dream is art or film, go where creation is currency. The goal isn't geography, it's immersion. The closer you are to the white-hot center of your craft, the faster you evolve. I once moved into a cramped house with 6 other entrepreneurs. The place was chaos, leaky faucets, late-night arguments, the constant hum of restless minds. But the environment did something to me. It burned away comfort. I watched men twice as driven as I was work until dawn, and their hunger infected me. Their failures taught me faster than my own would have. Within months, my thinking changed. My execution sharpened. My network multiplied. That messy house built me more than any classroom could. Contrast that with mediocrity. When you spend your days with those who complain, you inherit their helplessness. As Machiavelli warned, there is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. If you do not fight your own complacency, you'll be conquered by the environment of the lazy. You become the average of the 5 people you tolerate most. So, if you want to change your life, change your circle. If you can't yet afford to move cities, move digitally. Join the communities where the elite exchange ideas, where excellence is the baseline, not the exception. I remember being 25 in Europe, trying to build my first startup. I attended local founder meetups and was invited to give a keynote. I should have been proud, but I felt uneasy. If I'm the smartest man in this room, I thought, I'm in the wrong room. Within a week, I sold what I had and bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. No plan, no job, no home. Just certainty that I needed to stand where ambition burned hottest. That decision changed everything. Let's tie it together. You choose one money-making skill, selling, making, designing, or hunting, and devote yourself entirely to mastery. You turn that skill into equity through code, content, or capital, because ownership is the escape from servitude. You wait, impatient in effort, patient in results, knowing that inevitability compounds over time. And finally, you surround yourself with the best, because proximity compresses decades into years. When you follow these 4 laws, the odds of failure collapse. You make success statistically unreasonable to miss. Think of it like the game of fitness. Most people fail at dieting because they lack consistency. But if you simply eat clean, train daily, and sleep deeply, you don't need luck. You've stacked the laws of biology in your favor. Wealth is no different. If you practice the 4 rules long enough, failure becomes a choice. Machiavelli once said that the great man is he who can rule fortune by patience and audacity. You are building that man. Your task isn't to predict the future, it's to design it, brick by brick, year by year. There's one story I always return to when patience wavers. The comedian Steve Martin once decided he'd master the banjo. His teacher told him he had no natural talent. Most men would have quit. Instead, Steve vowed, "I'll play for 40 years. I doubt a man who plays for 40 years can still be bad." Within a decade, he won Grammys for the very instrument he once failed at. That's the reward of time. Talent is a myth. Endurance is the truth. So, remember this. Fortune crowns the man who builds quietly and endures loudly. Skill gives you the sword. Equity gives you the castle. Patience gives you the dynasty. And proximity gives you the army. Play this game long enough and wealth stops being a dream. It becomes your inheritance.